Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. I'm your host, Catherine Tao. Today, we have Jeremy Ernst, a principal AI engineer from Ally. And today, we're going to be speaking more about how to upskill your data science problems. So, welcome to the show, Jeremy. I'm excited to hear more about your field, your background, and just more about everything that you want to talk about.
Hey, Catherine, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah. So, can you introduce yourself and tell us more about your background?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, hi, I'm Jeremy Ernst. I'm a principal AI engineer, specifically on the conversational AI team here at Ally. My focus is kind of sitting in between the engineering and the data science groups, providing a bit of expertise from both backgrounds and how to best bridge the gap to ensure each team is kind of outputting what helps the project move forward. So, more broadly, I'm just really passionate in artificial intelligence and data science. Very strong believer that it has the capability to solve a lot of our problems, both in the financial industry that I'm working in now, but more broadly socioeconomically. And just happy to be a part of any implementations of that could help move the needle forward.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'm sure in a lot of your experiences that you've had, I'm sure there's a lot of pain points and challenges that you've also seen. And so I'm sure they're also common amongst a lot of other people that are working on these different data science problems. And so, what are some common pain points that you've seen that you would like to talk about today?
Yeah. So specifically, more recently, I've been focusing on client-facing data science products. So, which I think we're seeing a lot more in the industry today. Where, for example, what my team does. Develop a chatbot for users to interface with, or whether someone were to develop a labeling application for a computer vision project. I think as data scientists, what we do really well is pull all the relevant historical data to train the best model that we can, and the testing and validation processes ahead of time, ensure everything is good as possible, the most accurate model up to launch. But I think where things start to fall apart, or rather there's some difficulty around, is understanding how are we going to collect and then use that data after launch to continuously improve. So kind of building a feedback loop outside of just, what did I use to train it? I want to continuously train the model to tailor to how my users are using it today. So for example, like in conversational AI, we have historical chat logs that we see. And there's some assumptions, as with any project, when you're client facing, of how people will interact with your product. But it's very interesting if you set up the boundaries and just evaluate the data once you launch, where that disconnect is created, where expectations were missed. So it's really important to identify what are all the attributes and things, ways that my customers can interact and provide me back with data to help my model learn better, and then have an efficient way to re-ingest that data, retrain your models, redeploy, with minimal downtime and continuous improvements as fast as possible. But easier said than done.
Yeah, definitely. And it's important to also really think about the problems before, or the pain points before they actually kind of begin, since a lot of them are common amongst the different problems that we work on. And I want to hear more about ways that you and your team have kind of thought about ways to fix and upskill these issues strategically.
Yeah. So I think step one, in general, it's good to have more voices at the table. More people's thoughts to bring up things you may not have thought about. So how do we get the entire team, people that might not have a data science background, thinking in that context? So I think it's important for all members of a team working on a project, specifically around AI, even if they don't have a technical background in the domain, be provided the material to be able to at least contextually understand what are the implications of making certain changes on a mathematical level, but described in a way that could be understood without having a PhD. And I think that's part of the disconnect, is there's a lot of people who I think people that are not technical in the field just look at those technicians and say, I'll just take your word for it. And you can explain that it doesn't make sense to me, but bringing it to a level that does make sense, so everyone is speaking the same language, and then you can more easily brainstorm and come up with better ideas to capture those interaction points, understand your client more, figure out better ways to test, and just get more people talking about the problem.
Yeah, definitely. I hear that a lot on the podcast from past guests talking about how important it is for everybody to understand everything that's going on about the product and the technology side, and being able to explain it in layman's terms to other people within the team also so important. So great insight with that, definitely. And so for the people within the team or the industry that maybe have a lack of skill within the tech side, how can they kind of learn more about how to advance their skills here, or upskill their strategic skills?
Yeah, and good to hear, and to be expected, kind of the common theme in some other people's experiences in the field. So I think the world is doing a great job of developing more and more resources, like free learning content online. Nowadays, we have Udemy, Coursera, Udacity, you name it. There's a free or paid way to get great educational content without necessarily ever entering a classroom. But I think there is so much of that content that it's now almost intimidating for some people in knowing where to start. So I think it's really important to kind of engage with the community, build a group of people that are interested in learning similar topics. And that way, one, you have motivation to feed off of each other. Two, you can vet each other's resources and work. And three, just networking, understanding what's going on in different areas of either the company that you're in or the broader community that you're a part of is really important. So something that we've done here at Ally, there's a strategic initiative from the top down, proliferating what we call communities of practice. So that's generally kind of like an employee resource group of just people that want to learn some similar skill. So we have one for data science. And, as the companies in digital transformation and pushing self-driven analytics more and more, it's more important for people to start to understand the context and the language of what is data science specifically in my organization, as they try and onboard more people to next gen technologies, cloud technologies, et cetera. So we have a monthly forum where we will kind of network with different groups, share, the most recent projects. We have training content that we've curated and different groups to help work through that content as well. So people will meet on their off time in smaller groups and work through certain content that's on Coursera. So that's a big initiative that Ally in my company has been driving. And just more generally, I know this kind of concept of communities of practice has been starting in a few different companies. There's also a lot of great communities through meetups and LinkedIn groups. Just there's a lot of great discussion going out there, and just figure out what discussion interests you the most and just feel free to chime in. People are always welcome, and I think happy to have more people talking in the community. So reach out and about something you're interested in, connect with people, and then start your journey.
Yeah, and that also kind of brings in the networking aspect also. It's just so important to be able to network and learn more from others. Even if you think you know everything already, it's important to kind of hear other people, hear how they've been able to handle different situations, and it kind of broadens your perspective on certain topics. So that's definitely a great point there. And I know that specifically in your work at Ally, you've mentioned to me before about this project for conversational AI. Could you tell us more about this project that you've worked on, and anything that you want to talk about there?
Yeah, so I believe this, it's enough public knowledge. So our working on a chatbot platform called Ally Assist. It's a textual conversational interface, so you can go in through the app or the website, and just message, anything you need help with. It's fairly open-ended. I've been working on this project for about 2.5 years now, since near its inception. Been having a really good time. And what we focus on is, how to, now that we're out in production, how do we continually reinforce that feedback loop that I was talking about earlier? Your customers know what they want best, so learn from what they're telling you. But we find it's often difficult to parse out exactly, the meat of what they say. And obviously a lot of data analytic and science activities go into that, as well as engineering, the systems to support the data transport and continuous development. So it's an exciting journey. We are fully exposed to our customer base now, and continually building more and more feature sets to be able to better alleviate some stress from the contact center. So just looking forward to continually building out that feature set and seeing more and more users roll in.
Yeah, and that sounds like a super cool project and initiative that your team is working on. So thank you so much for sharing about that. And I still wanted to talk about things that are outside of your work now. How have you been kind of keeping busy during this remote world? Have you been picking up any new hobbies? How's your pastime been?
Yeah, so it is a very interesting world now. Before, I spend so much of my time behind screens and the computer that I try and be out, outdoors and active. So I used to go climbing and all these sorts of things just before. So, but now until all of that opens back up again, I've been focusing some more on kind of some side projects that I've been wanting to do for a while. Obviously, with so much activity, learning more about the stock market and, having my hand in trading, but trying to play with some different models there. I've also been working on just some side projects for NLP, kind of related to my work, but more generally, I think one of the big problems in NLP is specifically around conversational AI. You have this idea of intents, and I need to know ahead of time everything that my user is going to ask. But I think that there are some ways that we can maybe more quickly extract information from users' data and just create kind of a conversational interface without any predefined intents. But that is a research project underway by, I think, many in the industry. So just seeing where I can play my part there, just side tutorials and learning more and more about my field. So still just more time behind the computer screen, essentially.
Yeah, that's awesome though, that you've been able to find ways to kind of pass the time. And so I know that I have actually a podcast right before yours, and he had actually also talked about being more into looking into Dogecoin. What are your thoughts on that?
I a while ago played my hands in kind of the Bitcoin, Ethereum market, but similar with stock trading, I don't have enough, I think, free time in the day outside of my day job to keep up with it, monitor it, enough. I think that there's a lot of validity. It's a very interesting market because we kind of, as we've done with our own currency, it's just been so long, come up with some social agreement of the validity of some currency. And so people have started to accept, Bitcoin now as a form of payment. And I think it's until you see that happening with, any particular coin, I don't really see I think kind of any built up value behind it is, for lack of a better term, hype, or just driven by social sentiment. And I mean, sentiment is very powerful. I mean, look what's happened over the past year of just sentiment kind of driving the market based on, opens and openings and closures and whatnot. And more specifically, what's been going on with GameStop recently. Dogecoin specifically, I know Elon Musk has, tweeted some, and, it's here and there. And it's kind of funny because I think it started from a meme. But I'm, interested to see if people start accepting it as payment. We'll see. And I think that I can't give any investment advice, but would just say that I think you're kind of speculating, and just whatever you invest in it, be okay with losing. In general, I think the rule of investing is be okay with your losses, because otherwise you'll be, either really happy or really sad. But, I think people are very sensitive with their money and think, I want to start investing. But when it comes to it and they start seeing they lose money, there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions for people who aren't really accustomed to the market and wind up probably making some poor decisions before they should, thinking they'll wind up saving themselves and just hurt themselves in the end. So regardless of whatever coin it is, just do your research and just be aware of your acceptable losses, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Great point. I always talk to all my friends about it too, saying put in however much you are willing to lose. And I think that's a really good thought to go by, because it's part of the stocks. Like you're going to lose, you're going to gain, but you never know what's going to really happen, unless you like really do your research. But even then, sometimes things happen. But great point there. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the data standard now. So we at the data standard, we're trying to build a community of just data thought leaders and data enthusiasts so that everybody has a place where they can network and collaborate. So what is something that we can do for you?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the platform that you've given here to broadcast my voice. And in general, I'd ask the listeners or anyone in the community, feel free to reach out. Always happy to grab a virtual coffee or just, have a discussion board about, I want to hear about the projects that you're working on as well, and some of the challenging problems out there that you find interesting and how we may be able to address those. I think a big aspect, and I'm glad that this community exists, as we're moving more and more towards commoditized kind of advanced analytic and technological techniques, especially with automation. There's a lot of room to leave people behind. And it's really important that we don't do that, and that we give people the skills and start the discussions around, how do we bring everyone along in this journey that we're, for the jobs that we're automating away, or some of these problems that we're trying to work at for, rather than just, you taking the data from those users that have created it. Reach out to those users, understand better what are those issues and why haven't they been able to solve them. So just helping to broaden that community, and happy to now be a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll make sure to connect you with other people within our community, just so you can keep up to date with just speaking to other people and connecting with everyone on LinkedIn for sure. And where can everybody find you online just to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place. I think it's linkedin.com/in/Ernst Jeremy. Or you can email me at icodeandiknowthings@gmail.com. Big Game of Thrones fan, so I thought that was a spin on that. And always happy to have a conversation. Just feel free to send me a direct message.
Yeah, perfect. And very clever email name for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being on the show. To our audience, for more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as our YouTube and LinkedIn page. And this episode is sponsored by Pandio. They're a hot new tech startup in San Diego working on an Apache Pulsar messaging system. So learn more about their work at pandio.com. And thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us. Such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Catherine. Pleasure to be here.